Everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing one more video today, hopefully, because I got a lot of shit to do this weekend. This video is about this whole term of gatekeeping and how, I'm not going to use the word, it's an old school metalhead term for lame. You probably know what I'm going to say, because it is homophobic, because it's derived from a homophobic term, but it is not used in that way in the metal community. Really, it's not really. I've heard metalheads who were gay use that term actually, when this guy I was jamming with for a while, ironically enough, he said this word, which is kind of funny, which is the word I just said. But anyways, if I had to use a term, lame, the G word, the R word, why not just go all out on PC, on anti-woke language in this video. I'm just half joking anyways, or I'm being ironic, like a troll, like a meme, like Pepe, alt-right, you're mad, you're alt-right because you wore a Thor's hammer, you're alt-right adjacent, my ex-girlfriend. But anyways, it's funny. Maybe I'll bring that Thor's hammer out. The Thor's hammer is already on these these things. If you notice that it's kind of, it had some bleach on it or something. I have to wash it off because I was washing shit and got some bleach on it. Because I was cleaning my my murder victims, the floor from them and stuff, because I'm the next Jeffrey Dahmer. It's just anyways, I'm just kind of on a roll today. Oh, I just had some L-theanine. It's one of the, to me, that's a miracle drug, a miracle mineral, is L-theanine. I recommend it for anybody who wants to get over anxiety. So this whole thing about gatekeeping, 2 minutes in, this is actually a pretty good record, because it took me like 5 minutes the last video. I tried to make a point before I got to the point. And anyways, this gatekeeping thing, it's just totally lame. It's totally stupid. And like attacking people for gatekeeping. What is wrong with gatekeeping? Nothing. What is wrong with being a metal elitist? Nothing. Why? Why is there nothing wrong? Because look at what we just had with the Stranger Things debacle with Metallica and that girl on TikTok. And I don't know if she's just like a troll, sort of a trollish person, but certainly could probably eat 2 trolls in one sitting. But I'm fat shaming again. Yeah. I think the pendulum has swung so far. I think that should be returned to our society a little bit, because people are dying from fucking obesity. So fuck you. Anyways, including one of my friends. So fuck you. He almost died. He's not dead. But anyways, it's terrible. But the whole concept of gatekeeping is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with gatekeeping? What's wrong with having something you've done since you were 10 years old, and you grew up and you worked your ass off in whatever hobby or style of music or whatever art you're into, and people from these outsiders come in, and this is kind of an elitist proposition, but I'm just going to say this, and maybe they're of a different class structure, whatever, than what the hobby or the style of music usually is. So they seem a little alien. They seem a little other. You can other them. I don't like othering people, but I'm just saying. And what's wrong with saying, well, those preps were making fun of me 2 years ago when I wore my Injustice for All shirt. Now they're into the Black Album. What's wrong with saying fuck you to that? What's wrong with saying, oh, well, everybody was making fun of Iron Maiden 10 years ago. Or, well, this is like back in the 2000s. Some of the people say, oh, I like some of your music now. Like, it's just all these things coming at you. And people will want to attack people for being elitist. Like, oh my God, it's so problematic, so toxic. The left, the shit libs' favorite word is toxic. It's toxic. And like, the liberal, not leftist, I mean liberal, word to use is toxic. Like, toxic. It's like, it's so stupid. And it's just like gatekeeping is necessary for any culture to have like a sense of purity in there. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of gatekeeping here and there. I don't think there's anything wrong with like having an elitism about it, something that you like. I don't think there's anything wrong, because otherwise you'll get shit diluted. and just you're the essence of the culture that you're into will be diluted and dare I say destroyed. It'll be dispersed to the four winds, you know. So there's nothing wrong with gatekeeping in you know, on some level. I don't see anything wrong. Now, there's got to be a balance. I think some people go a little too far, obviously, you know. I mean, and there's an admission, like by me for one, I'm a total mainstream hack as far as music goes. I like a lot of mainstream stuff. I'm just totally, I wouldn't say I'm like a pop person, like, but shit. I mean, I'm playing a Foreigner song in a cover band. I mean, Foreigner is like one of the most top, like maybe 40 years ago pop. I'll just say that, you know, like boomer pop. Okay. I'm not some kind of like cult black metal dude. I mean, I have, you know, I like Limbonic Art, but that's, you know, I like some of these old school bands and stuff, but it doesn't mean like I'm not a cult dude, you know. I like very mainstream music. I'm just going to admit it, you know. And so gatekeeping for me, like I used to do it way more, but I can't do it anymore because I'm so mainstream now. I'm so into mainstream stuff. Like most of the stuff I listen to, like the rock or metal, is very poppy. Maybe for 1989, but maybe not for 2022. But you know, it's poppy for whatever period of time it was. You know, it's more retro. But yeah, gatekeeping. I just don't see the attacking on gatekeeping as being a very intellectually. I think I'm just saying it's very disingenuous to a cultural thing, because that said cultural object or style or movement, if you just water it down and dilute it by, you know, having anybody like take this like almost like vulturous, like they take scraps of it and they can make something else out of it, that's fine. But sometimes when you have something, you want to keep some of it pure, you know. And you know, gatekeeping is like, well, it kills like the socio-political foundations of a movement or a philosophy as well. I mean, take heavy metal. Okay, I'm going to say this. Heavy metal is not supposed to, you know, there's Christian metal and there's all sorts of different types of metal. You know, obviously, I'm not gonna say that, but at its core, heavy metal should be rebellious, because that's the ground it was built upon, was rebellion against a lot of different things. It's not a political rebellion per se. It's just a rebellion against a lot of different things, a lot of mores, social mores, and norms in society. Well, maybe even more punk, but But let's just take punk punk was kind of complicated because punk had that had a very right-wing bent at first, believe it or not. Read Please Kill Me by God, where is it? Legs McNeil and Gillian. I always remember. I don't remember her last name. I have that book somewhere. You know, read some of these early books about punk, or Punk magazine for that matter. It was very. I think the director of American Psycho actually was involved with that magazine too, ironically enough. But it wasn't very left-wing at first. It was when it went to Britain, it got really anarchist and left-wing and stuff. Very little known historical fact. I mean, I certainly don't think like Nixon, Gerald Ford fanatics were into punk like in 75 and at CBGB's, but at the same time, it wasn't like a big political thing at that point. But anyways, like the pure aesthetics and ideas of a movement, if there's not some level of gatekeeping, it's going to get diluted and distorted and destroyed, and it's going to not be what it is anymore. And that's the fact. When you have, but going back to metal, when you have like, and it's, you know, it's controversial, but I think when you have parents bringing their kids and their grandkids to like a metal show, it just proves that it went over too far into the mainstream in some ways. Like, metal should, you know, it should piss off parents. You know, it's like that Twisted Sister video, you know, with we're not going to take it with the story with the father. You know, that's what it should be. It should be my brother and my father getting into a fist fight, and then having his friend live under the porch. It should be a BMX, an illegal BMX bike shop in his garage, and throwing condoms out the window, and having me bring kids to see the condoms that my brother was throwing out the window at the time. Or, you know, that's what metal should be. Metal should be more like that. I mean, it should be like your grandmother says that you're going to be like possessed by Satan, you know. At least a little bit of it should. Some of it should. Some of it. Okay? Some of it should. And you shouldn't have metal sucks like, say, problematic metal bands. They had a swastika on an album. A guy played keyboard on the album for one song on an EP 30 years ago, had a swastika on one of his albums. Here's a Nazi band. Send Antifa to protest the band and get bear spray and pepper spray and sprays the band with our skinny emo-looking Antifa masked members of Antifa and go after the band. See, to me that's not metal. Metal is like fuck you, you know. It's not Nazi either, but it's fuck you, you know. And see, it's just like comic books. It's like I'm a gatekeeper about comic books. Comic book movies, when I have people that are totally like, when I meet people or talk to people that would have probably made fun of the comic book nerd in high school or middle school or elementary school, saying, "Oh, I saw all the Marvel movies." I get pissed off. I'm beyond like, I'm well beyond people that are like against like the new Reigns of Power, these, you know, the right wing, like talking about that, or like, you know, the new, what else are they talking about? These movies and these woke, you know, things, quote unquote. I'm well beyond that. I'm just like, why make a movie out of a comic book in the first place? It's like what Alan Moore said, it's better as a fucking comic book, you know? And, you know, like there's a few exceptions. I like, you know, Deadpool, original X-Men, you know, some of their stuff, and the Wolverine, some of the Batman, you know, with the Nolan Batman, and some of even the Keaton Batman, you know, the Tim Burton Batman stuff, and Joker, and, you know, stuff like that. But overall, I think a lot of comic book, these franchises and these corporate monoliths suck, and I hate it. I think it dilutes the initial, like, type of person that would like a comic book. It's just a different type of person, you know, that is not necessarily like your normie person that like votes for Biden necessarily or whatever. I mean, that's a dumb example, but I'm just saying, like, the gatekeeping thing, there's nothing wrong with gatekeeping. I'm just saying it's stupid. It's like there has to be an elitism. There has to be at least a part of it that's elitist, you know. A portion of the people have to be elitist, because otherwise the culture is destroyed. The culture is diluted, you know, into something else that's not that culture. You know, if you didn't have any metal elitists, you just, you know, it would be like the 90s again, like with all the fucking, like, I don't know, it just like, there's this blah, like, alternative, like, you don't know what it is, like, there's no definition. You wouldn't even have a definition of music. Not that the definitions are good at labels, but it's like, it would just destroy everything it's about. You know, these people that are coming in from Southern California with baggy pants and like 7-string guitars and like rapping over their like half-assed Steve Vai derived, like, not Steve Vai, but, you know, like these Steve Vai guitars, they're playing these 7-string Steve Vai guitars with like open chug chords and rapping over it, and their white kid from suburbia has skates who has a trust fund. To me, that's not fucking metal. I'm sorry. That's not metal. Metal is like a Bill Byford, you know, riding a motorcycle that he won in a card game or something, or, you know, like with some greasy biker that's been in, you know, British prisons all his life or whatever. You know, that's metal. And I'm not saying like I'm pretty innocent and clean cut compared to a lot of these guys. And I'm not saying, and metal is still the D&D nerd too. I mean, I'm gonna say that too. Maybe that's the closest thing to me. But like, I don't think it's like a suburban, you know, brat that's complaining about his life or how his girlfriend broke up with him and wouldn't have sex with him, you know, the nookie, you know, so to speak. I don't think that's metal. I don't think it's metal to, you know, be a part of some communist movement, you know. It's not, and it's not a Nazi either, but you know, the moment romanticism and in black metal and stuff, and you know, the philosophical romanticism. I'm not saying musical. I'm not going to get into that fight again, but you know, philosophical in the lyrics and the ideas of the guys. You know, there's plenty of books written about that. But like, yeah, it's close. It's probably closer to the roots of some of the far right. Obviously, that's where they get it from, and you know, that's the way it goes, and that's what happened. And not neck, or what is it called? Neck beard death. No amount of neck beard death camps is going to get rid of that element in metal. People grow. What happens is people grow older, they mature, and they open their minds to different things, and that's what happens. And maybe that's selling out or whatever to some extent, and maybe it is, but that's what happens. You know, it's not like these things, and these things are not. You know, that's the whole gatekeeping thing. It's like, gatekeepers are bad. Everybody should be into metal. Why? Why should everybody be into everything? That's just it's the opposite problem that we have now as we had like 20, 30 years ago, where there was all these. There was too much gatekeeping, but now the pendulum swung the other way, and there's not enough because people are just into everything. They're not really into anything. You know, they have their Spotify on and they're just listening to all this shit, and they don't even know that much about it. They don't know about the lyrics or anything like that. It's like they're just as clueless as like Paul Ryan using a Rage Against the Machine song at a political rally. It's like they don't know shit. So what's wrong with a little gatekeeping? What's wrong with a little metal elitism? Nothing. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's a, if your father likes Whiplash because it reminds him of Wipeout, are you going to attack him for like liking Metallica when you're growing up a little bit because of that? Obviously, a lot of fathers probably like Metallica now, but I'm just speaking of, something else that happened. It's kind of funny. Who cares? Like, oh, it's cool that he likes a Metallica song. At the same time, like I said, when you have, full blown like ideological morons that are trying to bring mace to a black metal show to intimidate fans that are just there for a show. Or if you cancel a guy for having an opinion about his own relationship and like, I'm referring to something else, but I'm not going to go into that in this video. It's just kind of stupid. It's like, there's room for all these ideas is what I'm saying. I don't think that's necessarily bad that people that are not traditionally from the economic class of what metal is about, or not the same ideology or personality type, getting into metal, like, oh, I really, the jock, in high school liking Pantera and working out to it, but he never doesn't listen to any other metal other than that. He listens to like fucking R&B and hip hop or something. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but like that diehard gatekeeping elitist asshole is a necessary cultural part of the culture, in my opinion. It's like, you had like, I don't know if you would call them film elitists, but you had like Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel back in the day, Siskel and Ebert. Were they movie elitists? Were they movie gatekeepers? Yeah, they were. When Roger Ebert said, I really, really, really hated this movie about Rob Reiner's North movie, and he said it was one of the worst movies the worst movie other than I Could Spit on Your Grave that he's ever seen. I think he's just like was really offended by a Spit on Your Grave, which I haven't watched yet, but I actually downloaded it. He was most offended by North by Rob Reiner. I mean, that's one of the most elitist opinions. It's just some dumb comedy from the 90s. Those 90s comedies have not dated very well, by the way, some of them. But yeah, it's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with cultural criticism, and what's wrong with criticizing people that are not, they don't have always the best motives when they get into a culture. And I don't mean like when they say like, it's not best motives, but they just don't understand it in a certain way. They don't have that understanding. I think the new metal guys did not understand metal in many ways, but they had co-opted some of it and they kind of diluted some of it in some ways. Just my opinion. You could make the same argument about hair metal, but I think hair metal is just rock and roll. It was just a continuation of rock and roll with some metal trappings in there. There's nothing wrong with that. And prefer hair metal to any new metal, anyways, or even a lot of metalcore. But when you have these people that are not like familiar with the things, and I just think that like when you have very upper crust normie kind of people that are co-opting, well, let's just say this, like, is it purist to attack Kim Kardashian or Lindsay Lohan or what's his name, Kanye West, for wearing metal shirts when they don't listen to the band? Is that gatekeeping? Is that metal elitism? Yeah, that's a problem. Why the fuck would you wear a shirt of a band you don't like? You're a moron. Fuck you. I don't care if it's metal elitism. And in conclusion, this is becoming way too long of a video. That's the way it has to go. In my opinion, there has to be a certain amount of gatekeeping in any culture, in any cultural movement or artistic movement. It just has to be that way. It doesn't mean you have to be a gatekeeper. It doesn't mean you have to like everything the gatekeeper says, or the elitist says, or elitist does. It doesn't mean that outsiders can't infiltrate your movement ever. It doesn't mean that you can't take your normie friends to a metal show and they won't understand the screaming, but they'll like some of the beats or something, and they'll buy a CD or stream an album or whatever, that just because they like the beats and they won't even like metal. Who cares? I don't give a fuck about that. But I just mean like the essence of the culture. I think we have to have a level of gatekeeping, a level of elitism. That's about all.